Hi, everyone, and welcome to our 30th episode of the Resident Rulebreakers.
30 already?
30 already.
What?
Today's podcast is a very special interview with Bruce Greenwood, who plays our favorite villain turned hero, Dr. Bell.
HODAD.
HODAD.
Or formerly known as HODAD.
Or as I call him, our HODAD to hero. We were very lucky to be able to reach out to Bruce via his fan page. Hi, Ryoko.
Thank you, Ryoko. Arigato, Ryoko. Thank you.
Thank you so much for helping us get in contact with Bruce. We got to talk to Bruce about some of his former roles. Obviously, he's had a career that spans a long time. You've seen him in some major blockbuster movies like Star Trek or National Treasure or Double Jeopardy. There's a lot more.
And elsewhere.
Then he was St. Elsewhere. So he's played a doctor before. We've talked about a little bit of that. And then we also talked about, obviously, Bell, where he wants to see Bell, his working with, Melina and Jane and
Kidolf.
Some Kidolf. And also, and this is a special treat, Bruce gave us an impromptu concert playing the guitar.
We got a little BB King going on.
But yeah, we had a lot of fun talking to Bruce. He's really not like Bell at all.
Opposite.
So thank you, Bruce.
We also got some behind the scenes information for Star Trek fans. I'm getting chicken skin still talking about it.
Which is a Hawaiian term that she uses for goosebumps. Also, Bruce revealed he has the first 4 scripts of the next season. He's read the first episode, and he is so ready to shoot it. Before we start our interview with Bruce, we want to remind you we do have a Patreon account. So if you want to support us, you can go to www.patreon.com/The Resident Podcast and donate. You can just donate $1 a month and it'll go right back into the podcast to help us keep it running. So without further ado, here's Bruce.
Hi, Bruce. How are you today?
Hi, guys. I'm great. It's been a nice...
Happy belated birthday. You turned 64 earlier this month.
Nobody's counting.
Okay. How did you celebrate?
Let's see. We cracked a nice bottle of wine, and I cleaned out my kayak. I was just hanging around the house doing. I mean, we're in quarantine because we went to Canada. So,
wow.
So we're still in quarantine.
Canada allowed you back? I thought Canada banned anyone from the United States.
Well, if you're a Canadian citizen, you can come back, but you still have to quarantine for a couple of weeks, and we're still in that quarantine.
Yeah.
So we just quietly sat here and had a glass of wine and made a little dinner and
that's
read
good.
And hung out. I didn't work too hard that day.
Took a break from housework. That's the best kind of birthday gift usually when you're adults.
Yeah, it was just very mellow because usually I'm working, right? Because we're already into production by then. So it was nice not to have to get up at 5:30 in the morning and pretend to be a doctor. So I could pretend to be a human being for a change.
That's good. Have you always wanted to be an actor?
No, I had much loftier goals, but when I was in university, I needed 3 easy credits because I was taking quite a heavy course load, and I realized that you can't really be failed for being a bad actor. You're still going to get credit for being an actor, but it turned out that so I thought it'd be really easy, but it turned out not to be easy. Although it was something that spoke to all the things that I like the most, which is the language and storytelling and. And
what did you study in college before
to be perfectly honest, I didn't go to college very long, but I was taking physics and economics and philosophy and English.
So you played POTUS. You played POTUS 3 times. What would your if you
I was thinking
would you ever run for politics? Would you ever do politics?
Well, I wasn't born in the States, for starters, so that would be tricky.
Which I pointed out in the podcast we did for your birthday. I said he's Canadian, so he couldn't be the American president.
Yeah. So.
But if you were, would you? I mean, like, would you? Did you ever think, even as a Canadian? I don't know Canadian government, but would you ever do Canadian?
I think I'm probably too. I'm maybe too opinionated. Not particularly. No. I'm far more. I'm too selfish for that, I think. Really, at the end of the day, you have to be a really meaningful politician. You have to be absolutely selfless. And
too many politicians are about themselves.
Well, yeah, for sure. And to be a great politician, you have to. Well, as I suppose with anything, you have to give it all you got, and be completely beholden to that discipline. I just don't think I would be. Just not that guy, even though I can pretend to be that guy.
Because we're both huge fans of National Treasure, and I actually watched it a couple weeks ago. I forgot you were even in that movie, for one.
Thank you.
I love that movie.
Big fan of the movie, and you forgot I was in the movie.
Well, no, I'm curious to know, like, you know that tunnel scene? Is that real? Like, is there really a tunnel under Mount Vernon or something? And, like, you do some kind of twisting thing?
We shot it at Mount Vernon.
Yeah. So there's really a tunnel at Mount Vernon.
Okay.
What is on page 97? Everyone is dying to know. What is on that page?
I think it's page 47.
47.
No.
Yeah.
Is it page 47?
I don't know.
47. So there's nothing on page 97. And that's a good question, and I think I've heard that the answer might be available in not too long, because I've heard rumors, and they're just rumors, that they're going to make another National Treasure.
National Treasure 3.
And whether or not...
Would you be part of it?
Well, that's a good question, too, because that would have required that I would have done, three stints as president, which has only happened once before.
But, I mean, you can still be part of it just as a former president. Advising.
Maybe, yeah, sure. I could be stuck in the tunnel somewhere, or, yeah, who knows. And I could run instead of running as POTUS, previous POTUS, I could run as HODAD. Wait a minute, we've already got a HODAD in office, so that wouldn't work.
You played Dr. Seth Griffin on St. Elsewhere. I like the mullet. You
do? Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm working.
You actually made that hairdo look good.
Trying to bring the mullet back right now. Yeah.
You actually made it look good.
That was pretty scary.
How is working in the medical drama in the 80s different than now?
It was all kinds of ways. I mean, medicine has changed dramatically, and in terms of the focus of our show, of The Resident, has a lot of similarities to the focus that St. Elsewhere brought to bear, which is to say they highlighted the idea that big pharma and large corporations were forcing the hospital to cut corners that were unsafe for people, and they were making decisions that were not based in medicine but based in finance only, and that kind of thing. So the shows shared a certain point of view in that respect. But St. Elsewhere was much more irreverent, right? It was very ironic. There was a lot of irony and a lot of funny stuff going on. And our show, and The Resident, is less ironic and a little more literal. I'm playing essentially, I started out playing not dissimilar characters, completely self-interested, self-loathing to some degree narcissists, and Seth Griffin sort of got his comeuppance, but not entirely. And then with Bell, they segued from him being a
HODAD.
bred to the bone bastard, HODAD, into somebody who had some redeemable qualities. But I think they sort of had to do that because there was, there wasn't a lot of room for him to remain as hideous as he was and still find a way to avoid being fired.
Yeah. We're rewatching season 1 right now, and it's like, I did not like you. I really did not like you in season 1. And
yeah, it was so leveraged for him to be a bad guy that they really had to find a way to pull him out of that spiral if they wanted to keep him around, because he was absolutely reprehensible. So they endowed him with a few redeeming qualities, and quietly he's clawed his way back to a something we can stand. Yeah, they did that in various ways. They did it with Melina because they gave Belle a love interest in Melina, and that kind of went sour and south for him because he was such a poor judge of character. But
we didn't like you we didn't like you with Lane.
Well, in a sense, what was interesting is that he was completely manipulated. I mean, the idea that he was really in love with her, to me, was kind of a non-starter, because she manipulated him into this relationship. But at the end, he had to tell himself that he was in love in order to avoid telling himself that he'd been played. So that was the lie he chose to tell himself.
Yeah.
You're also famous for playing Admiral Pike in the new Star Trek movies. Are you a Star Trek fan, for one? And which reincarnation are you a fan of, if you are?
When I was a kid, I was a fan of the television series, and at that point, I didn't appreciate all the classic themes that run throughout the television show. I was more interested in the women and their great costumes. And my favorite iteration, my favorite sort of remount of it, was the first one that we did. I thought that was incredibly evocative and strong, and gave it a lot of oxygen.
I have a lot of connection to Star Trek with my father because I was raised by my dad. So that's his favorite show. Like, to this day, he still watches the original series. So when the first movie came out that you were in, I was working at the local movie theater at the time. And so I got him in for free to touch it. I was like, "There's your treat, Dad. We're going to go watch Star Trek."
Oh, nice.
My favorite line, actually, in the first Star Trek film was when you said, "Your father saved 400 lives in like 45 minutes. Do better," or something like that.
Yeah.
I was just like, damn.
I dare you to do better.
Yeah, I was like, damn. Okay.
That was the first day. That was the first scene we shot.
It was emotional for me when you said that.
Was it? Oh,
I felt that, because it was one of those. You always strive to be better and to kind of be not outshine your father or outshine your parents,
but at least live up to.
Yes.
And live up to their aspirations and their hopes.
Yeah, live up to their expectations. Whatever. It was like, I felt that. I was like, oh, that was so good. I
remember saying to JJ that at the end of that day, kind of like, is that, is that what you're after? And he goes, yeah, I think so. Yeah. That was that whole fight scene in the bar, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of an amphitheater, right, where all the cadets are there. But there was a really beautiful thing that happened on that day. What? That was really, really emotional.
What?
And JJ was down there directing, and he said, we have a special guest today. Would you say hello to Leonard Nimoy? And up on the top level was Leonard Nimoy, and everybody just went.
I mean,
I got chicken skin just hearing
Yeah.
that.
It was really beautiful. I mean, the room just there was all of a sudden there was this electricity in the room, and this sort of, I don't know, it just filled with respect and admiration, and it was really.
Did you get to meet him?
Oh yeah.
That's gotta be that's such a big honor.
Yeah.
I would. Thank God. I got like chicken skin hearing this.
Live long and prosper. I would use in the future. I would use goosebumps rather than chicken skin.
Oh, chicken skin is a Hawaiian, a local.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's a local talk. It's what we call it.
Oh.
That's what we call it in Hawaii.
Yeah, because it looks like, because it gets all bumpy and looks, yeah. Oh.
But that's what we call it in Hawaii is chicken skin. We don't call it goosebumps.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But sorry, totally made a Hawaiian reference.
No, it's good. I learned something.
What was your first impression of Dr. Bell? When you first read the script of the pilot, what were you thinking?
My first impression was, if he's this much of a bastard, how can he survive in the show? Right? Like, how long can he be this much of a prick and this much of a liar and this much of a danger and survive? But I guess the truth is, if you read like Untouchable, or there are doctors out there who survive professionally for years, making terrible decisions and having tragic outcomes after tragic outcomes, and they do manage to hang on, but
they write their own reviews.
Well, sure.
I remember you with the elevator writing your own review.
Yeah, I mean that was fun, and it would have been fun to carry on that way, but I just don't know how they could have perpetuated. He would have become kind of a comic character, which would have been fine with me if he could have been the bad guy's comic relief. But the show is trying to address more serious issues than that, so you can't have the bad guy be too much of a buffoon.
Because that very first scene, like when people watch it, they're like, "This can't be real. This can't really happen." It's shocking to almost everybody.
No, I think
that appendix scene.
Right. I don't think that kind of thing happens in that way. It wouldn't be that overt, but there would be. I have no doubt that there's all kinds of subtle pressure that's brought to bear after a doctor makes a mistake that's been witnessed by people. All kinds of subtle pressure brought to bear where they are not told in any explicit way that they have to toe the line and protect the guy, but they're told in such a way that they understand that their job is at risk if they don't. And we just approach it in a much more fist in your face kind of way to drive the point home, because it might have taken a long time to really illustrate that if you'd done it in a way that was
subtle,
sort of more buried.
I think that's why the show succeeded, to be quite honest. People wanted to see something different that hadn't happened before. I think that's why the show succeeded. The early stuff had some bad reviews on it, but the show got better as it continued on.
Oh yeah, no question. It's a different show than it was at the beginning, and it is better. And the first episode of this coming season, if we ever get to shoot it, is really good.
Have you seen the script? How far ahead?
I've seen the script for the first episode, and we've just received 3 other scripts just a couple days ago. So I haven't gone through those yet, but the first one was really good.
That's exciting. Do you have? When are you guys expected back on set? You're still in Canada.
Yeah, well, we're not. I don't think we'll be in front of the camera until I don't really know, but I don't expect we'll be there before October.
we've already talked about this. Dr. Bell was HODAD during the first season, the first 2 seasons. When did you start noticing as an actor the change in Bell? Like, when did you start going, okay,
I think when
I
he
see now
turned,
that he's getting good?
maybe when he turned in Lane, you know, that could have been seen as completely self-serving to I guess when he decided to do the right thing and expose Lane, when he realized what she'd been doing, right? That was beyond the pale for him. So it seemed like that was probably the beginning of the turning point. Why? Where did it seem like it was for you guys?
Well, Amy's mentioned in the past when Henry almost died in season 2, there was a dramatic change in Bell because he witnessed his kid have this device almost kill him that he personally vouched for.
And for me, I still had doubts in you in season 3.
Well,
I was thinking to myself, like, he's gonna throw Andre under the bus. He's gonna go into that thing.
Well, I think it's fair. I mean, you can have a crisis of conscience and intend to do better, but if you're a narcissist and you're as self-involved as Bell was, those are hard things to acknowledge and hard things to let go of. So, as much as he's now trying to
be a better person,
to live truthfully and be a better person, there are, you know, I mean, why did he take the job doing the TV show? To feed his ego, or to bring medicine bring a certain kind of medicine to a wider audience? There's arguments for both, right?
I love the TV show Sid. I hope Bell keeps doing that. When we mentioned that we were interviewing you, so many people commented, "Ring the bell!" Like, okay, we get it. You love the TV show. We do too.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to do the show because you get to interact with new people every week. But at the same time, from an actor's point of view, if you're doing that television show, you're not working with the regulars as much, right? So it's a little more difficult to develop storylines that are connected to the regulars all the time.
Well, fans would love to see you and Malcolm's musical abilities tied into your characters. That was something that we were asked.
Well, yeah, I mean, we talked about it. Not Malcolm and I talked about it with the producers early on, because surgeons often do have some kind of dexterity things that they do to keep their fingers nimble. And although I play guitar, I'm not a good finger picker by any stretch of the imagination. So I said to them, to really do that believably, Bell would have to be a really decent picker, and I'm not. So we decided not to use that as a sort of a dexterity exercise, which would have been a great excuse to bring a guitar into Bell's life. But I'm not really good enough to justify that. Hang on a second, just stand by.
Oh, we get a performance. I hope so. Well, what kind of songs do you like to play? Can we make suggestions? Can we make recommendations?
You can make suggestions all day long.
Okay. What's that Billy King song? Do you know Billy King? Any Billy King songs? Billy King, like blues. Blues. Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay, now we're getting with your female co-stars. How is working with Melina and Jade?
No, I had a lot of fun with Melina, because it was so the situation was so crazy that she was such a
evil person.
So evil, and they sort of threw us together so quickly, and And we had a lot of laughs about that. And she's a highly energetic, really fun person. And with Jane, we've spent a lot more time together. Jane and I have had the luxury of having a lot more time together than Melina and I had. And it's almost invariably when we're in the OR with Jane and I, we've got the masks on and we're messing around with, all kinds of gooey, sloppy props, but it's very hard not to laugh sometimes, and we're sort of howling behind our masks at how absurd it all is sometimes. And there's, we'll stand at that, at the scrub in sink.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, there's a pedal, a big fat pedal in front of each person's knee where you can turn on the water and turn off the water. But of course, when you're shooting, the water can't be running while you're talking. So you're constantly bumping it when you turn it off when you're about to do a line, and then they'll turn it on by mistake when you're doing a line. And always
That's funny.
Yeah. And she's just an absolute sweetheart. It's just, I just, every scene that we have together, I look forward to.
Well, a lot of fans are ready to see Kit and Belle become an item in the next season.
Well,
They want Kit doll.
there is that, right? There's that possibility, but at the same time, if you become an item, unless you're Nick and Conrad, if you become an item, in order to keep it interesting, you have to sort of put those people in conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think for us, it's more, for me anyway, I think it's more interesting to keep us thinking about getting together and trying to suss where the other person is coming from and intrigue them and tease them, and just, I think it's more fun for us to play with if we're not together.
Yeah.
I just think there's more room for stuff to happen.
You and Malcolm. I swear.
Malcolm said the same thing about his him and
Why
Jeanette.
are you guys against your own ships?
Well, it's not that so much as I so enjoy working with Jane in the dynamic that we have, that I just think there's a lot more room for us to there's a whole other season worth of stuff that we can play with before they do get together, if they ever do.
Well,
she
a lot of fans love it.
She might think it's like, it's a terrible idea. No, she's tremendous. She's great fun, and I'm a huge fan, and anything we get to do, I see it on the call sheet, or the script comes up and there's a scene with she and I just go.
Do you have any behind the scenes favorite moments or funny moments with anybody?
Yeah, of course. We're always fooling around and laughing. Malcolm's always got his bass, and we've played together a couple times on the set, just fooling around.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole cast is really easygoing, right? So it's easy for us to hang around and talk, and it's a good vibe.
What are your hopes for Belle in the upcoming season?
For me?
Yeah, for the character.
What do you want from him?
That's a good question. In a perfect world, I'd like for him to have enough challenges that require some serious intellect to overcome. I'd like to have him to have maybe a little more physical presence, but I also like. I really like doing stuff that's a bit silly. So, and that's why it's fun with Radek, right? Because he's.
Yeah. We want Radek back. We would love to have Radek back in season 4. because we love your interactions with him.
Yeah, so it's fun to have to play around with him and you know, him making fun of me and me making fun of him. Those are light moments, and I would love to have more of those.
Okay, so let's just ask a couple of fan questions and then we can end. One fan question that we got is if they ever changed the requirements for 007 or something, would you like to play 007?
Oh, how would they change the requirements? I'd have to be, yes,
British.
James Bond, older Bond. I'm sorry, yes, I'm Bond. What 00? Is it 008? 00? I'm not entirely sure. I was a secret agent. Don't tell anyone. Yeah. 00, I played 0011.
Well, another one that they had is the favorite scene of yours is you cleaning the OR for your best friend. I love that scene. It like literally made me cry watching.
That was a really well written scene. That was a really cool storyline, and yeah, I remember shooting that with JB and who was the DP those first 2 years, and the two of us just playing around. He had a handheld camera and he was chasing me around, and we were inventing, you know, reflection shots and stuff. Yeah, that was a moody moment that felt authentic.
I actually compared. Are you a Harry Potter fan? I compared it to when Harry Potter
buried Dobby in the
Dobby,
final.
yeah, in the final book in the movie, because Dobby was a house elf who wasn't able to do magic, who was pretty much a servant to the wizards or whatever. But when he died, saving Harry, Dobby paid respect by burying him without magic too. You know what I mean? I was just like that. That scene of you cleaning up the OR reminded me of that. It was like you were paying the respect very well to your friend or whatever.
Yeah, that was a beautiful.
I cried.
Yeah, that was a beautiful little moment. Yeah.
Do you have any favorite moments filming? Like any favorite scenes? Obviously, that one was probably one of yours, but any others?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. One of my favorite scenes actually didn't make it into one of the episodes, and it was I guess probably pointless to talk about it. But Jane and I had a long discussion about the mistakes they'd made in love as we were scrubbing in, and it ended up with me, I think, asking her to meet me that night or something and do something together, but it didn't make the cut for some reason. Anyway, in terms of favorite stuff that you guys might have seen, I don't know. It all runs together. It really all runs together. That's a hard thing to answer.
There's 57 episodes at this point.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, Malcolm and I had a lot of fun when we were deciding to reach out to Conrad to help us decipher a problem.
When he was fired?
Yeah, and I think it ended up with us saying, you know, I guess we got to call, oh God, this is the last thing I thought I'd ever say. I guess we've got to call. And he goes, Conrad, and I go, yeah. And he goes, did that hurt so much? And I go, yes, it did. You know, that whole thing. We had a lot of fun with that.
Okay, so the last fan question. What's the secret to being a yummy 64-year-old?
You'll have to ask one. Yeah. Well, I think the secret is just be grateful that anybody would ever say that.
Aww. Oh, you're humble. But
well, if you knew me better, you'd know why.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We had fun. And thank you for the impromptu concert.
You're welcome.
You want to play us out?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Nice
Bye.
to see you. Cheers.
Once again, we just want to thank Bruce for agreeing to be interviewed by us. We're so grateful for that. And again, to Ryoko for helping us get in contact with him. She runs his fan page called Bruce Greenwood Fan. You can follow her on Instagram and Facebook.
She's a big she is a big supporter of his, and she knows him personally. So you guys have any so that's why we don't normally tell people to follow certain fan pages or whatever.
In this case, Bruce actually supports this fan page.
Yeah.
So that's why we're doing it.
Personally, by name, everything. So yes, go support her, go be a fan of her.
And then obviously follow Bruce on Instagram. He doesn't have the little blue check, but it's official Bruce Greenwood. So you can go there and see what Bruce is up to. So before we sign off today, I just want to say that we do have a Patreon account. You can donate just low as $1 a month, and that money goes right back into the podcast to support things like hosting, equipment, editing software, stuff like that. Interviews, it goes towards us helping fund certain things. It just keeps it running. You can go to www.patreon.com/The Resident Podcast. We'll have things that'll be perks for you that normally people wouldn't get if they aren't a patron.
People always ask us oh well, how did you get Malcolm and Bruce on the podcast? We know them. We know I know Malcolm. I've been talking to Malcolm for 2 years. Ryoko has been talking to Bruce for longer. So that's how we know them, because we know we were able to get through them through personal connections.
Now, for our ways to listen, you can listen to us on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and then you can watch any video we have that's interview-wise will be on YouTube. So there's that. So subscribe.
Thank you to the new followers.
Yeah, we have had tons of new followers courtesy of Malcolm. Thank you, Malcolm.
Yeah,
but also, so thank you, Malcolm, for promoting us.
Yep.
We were really surprised
and happy.
Yes.
This is probably going to be our last podcast interview for a while, because everybody's going back to work or filming or whatever. So let's give a shout out to all the people who have given us the privilege of interviewing them and getting into their heads and stuff. So Stephen Reddington, who plays Bradley Jenkins, Amy Holden-Jones, who's the co-creator, executive producer, and writer of The Resident, Radek Lord, who plays Grayson, Jessica Meisel, who plays Nurse Jess, Marquis Jackson, who's an co-executive producer and writer of The Resident, Malcolm-Jamal Warner, who plays the Raptor, Dr. AJ Austin, last but certainly not least, Bruce Greenwood, who plays Dr.
Randolph Bell.
So thank you all.
And our very first interview was actually with Kamal Bolden way back in the day when it was like our 4th episode. And so thank you to Kamal as well.
So, and for those who don't know, Kamal Bolden played the husband in 220.
So we also, obviously, we have our social media. We have our Instagram page, which is at The Resident Podcast. And we both have personal Instagram pages. Camille is at The Resident on Fox Fans. And then I have my personal, which is at KB Country 37. So, and then we have our Facebook page, which is The Resident Rulebreakers Podcast. There is a little button at the top of our podcast page that links it to the Facebook group we have called The Resident Fox Fans. If you're not a member of that group, you can join. Answer all 4 questions, please. Yeah. If all 4 questions are not completely answered, we will decline. the request. And if there's like an answer that we think is just weird, because we want you to actually be able to understand what we're talking about when we're in the group. Then we have our Twitter account, which is @ResidentPodcast. So there's that. And then you can email us, theresidentRulebreakers@gmail.com. And you can also leave reviews on Apple Podcasts and Google Play.
Yeah.
And
leave comments on YouTube too.
Before we go, I want to say one thing. Happy Labor Day to our American fans, because it's Labor Day. We'll be watching The Elopement, which is episode 17. And that episode is the Me Too episode of The Resident.
I guess we're going to get political.
So we're going to be talking about Me Too and stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay. The following week is Family Affair, and that's where Devin's parents come into the picture.
Yeah, we watched it during the Devon-centered episode.
Yeah.
We talked about it during
Yep. And then because we've already done 1-9 back when we did Conic Month, we're jumping ahead a little bit and jumping into 1-10, which is Haunted. And Haunted is pretty much Conrad talks to one of his former professors, and I think she's seeing ghosts of people that have died, patients that have died. Anyway, I think he tries to get some type of help from her on how to deal with death of a patient. So we're going to be talking about what's going to be happening for the rest of September. So happy Labor Day to our fellow Americans, and we'll see you next week. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Camille. Bye.
Bye.